Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Insider 24 update channel. The Young and the Restless, 2 scoops for the week of October 6th, Jack and Jill climbed a hill. The Young and the Restless past is still relevant today. On The Young and the Restless, Jill visited her ex-sister-in-law Nikki. Image courtesy of CBS with Jess Walton's return as Jill Abbott. This week on Y&R felt like an old homecoming. The 3 people who need to be part of Kane's story are his twins, Matty, Lexi Stevenson, and Charlie, Noah Alexander Jerry, and Jill, his surrogate mother. We got 33.3% of our wish on that front with the return of Jill. Walton walks back into Genoa City as if no time had passed, picking up with relationships old and new with ease. This is picky, but we never, ever, it seems, hear reference that Jill and Nikki, Melody Thomas Scott, were once related by marriage courtesy of her marriage to Greg Foster, the late Wings Hauser. However, that probably took place prior to the Abbotts and Newmans being introduced. We adored hearing allusions to Nikki's best friend and Jill's longtime foe, Catherine Chancellor, Jean Cooper. When Jill mentioned that she was going to England to see her doctor brother for some care later in the week, we also received a shout-out from Snapper, David Hasselhoff. And, during her talk with Kane, Jill made a fond reference to Collins, the late Tristan Rogers, ridiculous smile, even in his final days. When Daniel, Michael Graziardi, was talking to Tessa about how to help Mariah, he mentioned Chance. It was worth the wait for Jack, Peter Bergman, and Jill to have a lengthy sit-down conversation with us. These 2 characters have been together for decades. It's unfortunate that Jill has already mentioned returning to Genoa City. We're all on board for Jack's stepmother to move back to town permanently. More regarding Phyllis. On The Young and the Restless, Michelle Stafford plays Phyllis. Photo courtesy of CBS. This was the week for historical references. Nick, Joshua Morrow, and Phyllis, Michelle Stafford, were having a conversation at Society when Phyllis mentioned her traumatic relationship with her embezzler father. This served as a reminder of the differences between people like Phyllis, who came from nothing and had to fight for every scrap they got in life, and people like, this list is long, Jack, Victor's kids, and others, who are born into wealth. By playing the dice with Kane, Phyllis is willing to take a significant risk. She is so passionate about her role in Genoa City because of conversations like the one she had with Nick. During their conversation at Society, Phyllis appeared to have gained Victor's respect. She came over when Victor called, and the 2 of them played mind games over coffee and French toast. Phyllis also had a great interaction with her son, Daniel, this week. The idea that Danny, Michael Damian, would have shared Daniel's confidence with Phyllis so that she could use it against him did not seem plausible. It makes sense that Phyllis would deceive Daniel into confirming her suspicions about what Daniel had done. It's great fun watching Phyllis's wheels spin. She's often 2 steps ahead of her family, friends, and foes. When she said that unrequited love was one of the worst feelings ever, she spoke with wisdom. She is attempting to prevent Daniel's heart from breaking because he has become quite fond of Tessa. If and when they reconcile, he might just have to say goodbye to her and Mariah, and the mystery of how Mariah almost killed a man will be solved. All of the news that can be printed. Nick, Adam, Mark Grossman, and Chelsea, Melissa Claire Egan, on The Young and the Restless. We waited all summer for an expose on Kane from Newman Media. Thankfully, Adam, Mark Grossman, has now done it. With people threatening to do this and threatening to do that, viewers can only take so much. Somebody pull the trigger. We also liked Chelsea standing by Adam, not only figuratively but literally, too. Adam is a great fit for Chelsea. As a con artist who has lived on the outside, she can relate to Adam's feeling like he's the black sheep of the Newman clan. He is, after all. This doesn't mean she's not going to try to compliment her partner. When Kane showed up after the negative article was published, it surprised us. Why go to the camp of the enemy in that way? Better would be to get people to come to him in some way. In point of fact, isn't the Genoa City Athletic Club supposed to belong to Kane? We anticipated that many locations would enter the club through the revolving doors and be greeted by Kane, prompting them to joke that they had lost their appetites or that they needed to go to Society, when Y&R mentioned that in passing. Adam and Chelsea talked about Kane's story being vetted by Newman Media lawyers. Therefore, exactly how can Billy sue? We wonder why Abbott Communications was put on hold at times like these. This would have been a great opportunity for Billy to ingratiate himself with Kane by offering him a platform that would take the opposing side of the Newman story. For that matter, why didn't Kane buy up the Genoa City Chronicle? Given her father's, Robert Colbert, ties to the Chronicle, it would be a great way to reintegrate Leslie Brooks, Janice Lind, back into the show. She could easily have a stake in the Chronicle. The Wedding of My Best Friend. On The Young and the Restless, Tracy Bergman portrays Lauren, Michael Damian, Cricket, Laura Lee Bell, and Danny, Christian LeBlanc. Watching Tracy and Michael, Christian LeBlanc, argue at the jazz lounge over his lying to her about returning to work with Victor was entertaining. We thought a trip back in time might be in order when we saw the teaser that Michael and Christine were going to talk and Danny and Lauren putting their heads together. These four have so much history between them. However, the focus of this episode was more on reuniting the couple. We were surprised that Cricket asked Lauren to be her maid of honor. She would be an excellent wedding planner. Cricket and Lauren share a connection through Greg Foster, just like Jill and Nikki did. Lauren was married to Cricket's half-brother Scott, Peter Barton, in the past. But that's a dynamic that's never referred to, just as Cricket's connection to the Abbotts has been mostly ignored. Do you remember when Jessica, Rebecca Street, Chris's mother, got married to John Abbott, the late Jerry Douglas? Cricket and Jack, Tracy, and Ashley are all technically one-time stepchildren. Cricket's decision not to ask Nina, Trisha Cast, to be her maid of honor seems odd. We're just hoping Kane will be invited to the gala so Nina can attack him. Solution via software. On The Young and the Restless, Jill, Jess Walton, might be the solution to Kane's AI problem. Jack made the most sense when it came to Kane's AI software. Jill ought to receive it from Kane. After all, Kane trusts her. Jill could get rid of the software, and then the moguls in Genoa City could go back to playing business games on a more even playing field. If Kane is looking to ruin Lily's heart and have a better relationship with his kids, he'd do well to destroy the AI software. We can't think of a better way for him to get even with himself. Jill has faith in Kane. We love to see Jill say, "I told you so." It's a win-win. It was wonderful to hear Kane admit that he wanted Billy and Jill to get back together more than he wanted Lily to love him again. If he destroyed Newman, Jabot, Chancellor Industries, and other businesses from within, why would Lily want to reunite with Kane? Although Mattie and Charlie's lack of interest in the billionaire father puzzles us, we are aware that soaps sometimes require us to suspend belief. Kane ought to be aware that people can be purchased. Both Charlie and Mattie must have aspirations. Those things can be accomplished with Kane. October surprise. When Diane joined the team to take down Victor on The Young and the Restless, Jack, portrayed by Peter Bergman, was ecstatic. We get excited about the business stories on Y&R when personal issues are brought into the boardroom. Kane ran by Jack what the power players in Genoa City would do if each of them got their hands on the AI software. It was still surprising to hear Jack say he would use it to take Victor down, despite the fact that Jack appears to not be as out for blood with Victor at all times. However, Victor has pursued Jack and his family for far too long, so it makes sense. We got a chill when Jack said sure, in a way that indicated he didn't mean it at all, when Diane told him he would get rid of the software. Even more pleasantly surprising was to hear Diane say she was all in with Jack's plan, and with a passionate kiss, they sealed the deal. These two have one of the best marriages not only in Genoa City, but in all of daytime television. A rekindled legacy. Jill Abbott's Return the Young and the Restless excels at honoring its heritage while advancing new plotlines, and Jill Abbott's return to Genoa City served as a reminder of this. With the kind of effortless grace that only a true soap opera veteran can possess, Jess Walton returned to Jill's skin. Her appearance was not a nostalgic cameo, rather, it was a significant homecoming that rekindled several lost connections. It appeared as though decades of tangled history between Jill and her former sister-in-law Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, were quietly unfolding when they went to visit. Jill's marriage to Greg Foster once made her Nikki's sister-in-law, despite the fact that the writers did not explicitly revisit the Foster family connection, their interactions were full of unspoken history. When the two women reminisced about Catherine Chancellor, the late Jean Cooper, there was a beautiful sense of continuity. Catherine's presence loomed large over every scene, reminding viewers that the bond and rivalry between her and Jill was one of Y&R's most enduring storylines. The subtle nod to Snapper Foster, David Hasselhoff, when Jill mentioned visiting her doctor brother in England added another touch of nostalgia that delighted longtime fans. However, Jill's meeting with Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, was the real source of her emotional turmoil this week. Their surrogate mother-son relationship remains one of the most genuine dynamics on the show. Kane's turmoil over his controversial AI software and his recent moral decline found grounding in Jill's steadfast loyalty. Despite moving Kane's story forward, Jill's reference to her late husband, Colin, played by the beloved and mischievous Tristan Rogers, brought levity and warmth. The sparkle in Jill's eyes when she referred to Colin's ridiculous smile carried just enough tenderness to make even the most cynical fan misty-eyed. Jill's return served as a catalyst rather than merely a cameo. The stabilizing influence Kane so desperately requires was provided by her wisdom, emotional foundation, and business acumen. It's unfortunate that she's already talking about returning to Genoa City because her presence feels necessary. If the writers truly want to explore the intersection of legacy and innovation, Jill should be a permanent fixture again, the matriarchal balance to Jack's cunning, Victor's power, and Phyllis's chaos. The Queen of Change, Phyllis Summers, on the other hand, spent the week reminding everyone why she is one of Genoa City's most intriguing and complex characters. With surgical precision, Michelle Stafford continues to deliver powerful performances that alternate between vulnerability and manipulation. At Society, her conversation with Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, was a memorable one because it revealed Phyllis's layers, not because they got into a heated argument. Her character's constant yearning for control and redemption is rooted in her reference to her embezzler father, who passed away. Phyllis did not come from a position of privilege, rather, she worked her way to the top, which makes it all the more plausible that she would defy the Newmans and Abbotts. A defining fact about Phyllis was brought to light this week: she is both her own worst enemy and her greatest champion. In this setting, her risky partnership with Kane, which has the potential to backfire, makes perfect sense. She recognizes Kane as a like-minded outsider who is attempting to outwit the elite of Genoa City. Equally captivating was Phyllis's conversation with Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, which read like a verbal chess match between two geniuses. Over coffee and French toast, they traded subtle threats and barbed compliments, each acknowledging the other's resilience. Victor doesn't usually respect people who challenge him, but in Phyllis, he sees something formidable, a survivor's unbreakable will. Her interactions with Daniel, Michael Graziardi, gave her week an additional human facet. The tug-of-war that occurred between mother and son was evident. While Michael Damian's Danny Romolotti's loose lips made things more complicated, the story was really driven by Phyllis's shrewd intuition. She doesn't need inside information, she reads people with terrifying accuracy. When she spoke about unrequited love being one of life's deepest pains, her words resonated not just for Daniel's situation with Tessa, but also for her own complicated romantic history. Phyllis is still Genoa City's unpredictable heart, a woman who refuses to be written off, whether she's sparring with Victor, comforting Daniel, or planning her next business move. The Newman Media Expose: Power, Ethics, and Fallout. Newman Media's expose on Kane's AI scandal finally came out after weeks of anticipation. This plot development gave the business side of the show some much-needed movement. Mark Grossman's Adam Newman and Melissa Claire Egan's Chelsea Lawson once more proved to be an explosive duo. Chelsea's unwavering support for Adam gave their scenes a nostalgic feel that brought back memories of their glory days as con artists. They are both outsiders navigating a world that refuses to forgive them, but their chemistry is undeniable. It was refreshing for Adam to publish the expose rather than continuously threaten it. Too often, soap storylines stall under the weight of unfulfilled threats. Here, action spoke louder than words. The aftermath, however, was fascinating. Kane confronting Adam at Newman Media was a bold and reckless move, highlighting his desperation. He marched straight into enemy territory rather than fighting in the shadows, exposing his pride as well as his vulnerability. The business intrigue deepened when questions arose about the legal implications of the expose. Billy Abbotts, Jason Thompson, threats of a lawsuit appeared pointless in light of the fact that the story was reviewed by lawyers for Newman Media. However, a deeper question arose from this circumstance. Where is Abbott Communications in all of this? The dormant company would have been the perfect platform for Billy to counterattack, perhaps even teaming up with Kane in a surprising twist of alliances. In addition, the mention of the Genoa City Chronicle presented a fantastic opportunity for the show to reintroduce Leslie Brooks, Janice Lind, a callback that would link the contemporary media conflict to Y&R's journalistic roots through her late father, Stuart Brooks. This storyline has the potential to bridge generations of Y&R history while exploring timely issues about technology, privacy, and corporate ethics. Kane's AI software isn't just a plot device, it's a metaphor for unchecked ambition, a mirror reflecting the moral corruption that often festers beneath Genoa City's polished veneer. Rivalries and love. The wedding of my best friend in the midst of the chaos in the business world, the week also included some heartwarming humor. The scenes featuring Michael Baldwin, Christian LeBlanc, Lauren Fenmore, Tracy Bregman, Danny Romalotti, and Christine Cricket Blair, Laura Lee Bell, were pure nostalgic joy. Their banter at the Jazz Lounge was light, witty, and charming, a refreshing counterbalance to the high-stakes drama elsewhere. The interplay between Michael and Lauren, as he tried to justify his continued involvement with Victor's shady dealings, showcased the couple's enduring chemistry. An unexpected turn of events, Cricket's decision to ask Lauren to be her maid of honor, raised some eyebrows. After all, their connection runs through a web of forgotten family ties. Lauren was once married to Cricket's half-brother, Scott. Furthermore, Cricket was technically once a member of the Abbott family when her mother Jessica wed John Abbott. Y&R's decision to reawaken these buried relationships reminds us how deeply intertwined everyone in Genoa City truly is. Still, one had to wonder why Cricket didn't ask her oldest and most devoted friend, Nina Webster, Trisha Cast, to be by her side. With Nina's fiery personality and her history with Kane, the potential for conflict at the wedding practically writes itself. It would be soap gold if Nina stood up to Kane at the ceremony and criticized him for his manipulations. Kane's Crossroads, an application solution. Jill's influence on Kane's decision regarding the AI software was one of the week's most satisfying arcs. Always the strategist, Jack Abbott suggested that Kane give the software to Jill as a sign of trust and redemption. Jill represents the moral compass that Kane desperately needs. He could atone for his previous mistakes and re-establish his relationships with Lily and their children, Matty and Charlie, by giving her control of the technology. But Kane's internal struggle is still complicated. His motivations are tangled between revenge, guilt, and a longing for respect. The revelation that his true intent was to bring Jill and Billy back together rather than win Lily's heart revealed a more selfless side of Kane that we rarely see. Ironically, he runs the risk of burning bridges that cannot be repaired while attempting to repair the family he broke. Kane and his twins' strange estrangement is another curious aspect. It strains believability that Matty and Charlie, now adults with ambitions of their own, would reject their father entirely, especially considering his immense wealth and influence. Perhaps the writers are setting up a redemption arc where Kane uses his resources to fulfill his children's dreams, proving that his heart, not his wallet, defines him. If the writers truly want to bring Kane full circle, his redemption must come not from outsmarting his rivals but from reclaiming his humanity. His last hope and possibly the only thing keeping him from self-destruction is Jill's faith in him. Jack and Diane, love and power intertwined. Without addressing the growing conflict between Victor Newman and Jack Abbott, no discussion of the week would be complete. The rivalry that has defined decades of Y&R history is once again heating up, but this time, Jack has both love and strategy on his side. Subtext permeated his conversations with Kane about the AI software's potential misuse. Fans could practically hear the echoes of their decades-long feud reverberating through Genoa City's boardrooms when Jack casually stated that he would use it to eliminate Victor. However, Diane's, Susan Walters', unwavering support truly astonished viewers. Once upon a time, Diane would have begged Jack to avoid conflict. She is now his partner in love and war, his equal. When she leaned in and whispered that she was all in on his plan, the moment carried an electric charge. The passionate kiss that followed was not only romantic but also symbolic, announcing that the Abbotts have stopped being nice to each other. Together, Jack and Diane represent a formidable fusion of intellect, ambition, and shared vengeance. Everyone was reminded by Jack's chillingly sincere shore when Diane suggested destroying the software that the Abbotts, despite their presumption of honesty, are just as capable of plotting as the Newmans. This storyline promises a power struggle worthy of Y&R's legacy, a corporate and emotional chess game with potentially devastating consequences. Final thoughts: the past is present. The Young and the Restless episodes this week were a masterclass in balance, balancing heart with strategy and nostalgia with innovation. By revisiting characters like Jill Abbott, deepening Phyllis's moral complexity, and reigniting Jack and Victor's eternal rivalry, the show reaffirmed its core identity, a multi-generational saga of ambition, love, and redemption. Y&R may be entering one of its most exciting eras in years if the writers continue to weave the old with the new, pairing classic characters with contemporary dilemmas like AI ethics and media manipulation. Genoa City thrives when its stories feel personal yet epic, familiar yet unpredictable. This week, it was both a love letter to the past and a promise for the future, and it was all of that and more.